Andrea, welcome to the show. Great to have you here.
Thank you so much, Brad. It's a pleasure.
What first sparked your interest in exploring joy so deeply?
The reason I started exploring joy was after my first brain operation that happened in November 2020, where I underwent a 9-hour brain operation to remove a tumor. And that experience completely transformed how I look at life. And I came to realize that we often pay so much attention to things that are just so unimportant in life. And what became the most important element that I chose to prioritize was how can I experience more joy in this world? And how can I bring more joy to others that I love? And this led me to the creation of 1 Million Years of Joy and a lot of the work that I do today.
Amazing. You've done business in over 50 countries. How has that shaped your understanding of joy and human connection?
The experiences have all been filled with so much richness, so much awe, and so much, I would say, diversity. And this is what I love. Uh, my passion, I would say, for understanding different cultures started years and years ago when I had a global team. And I was really curious in exploring how do I motivate these individuals that are from different cultures, have different values, and it really led me on a path of exploration that was fascinating and that prepared me, I would say, for the realities that came into the business negotiations, whether they were happening in Latin America or Asia or North America and so on. And as you can imagine, as a young female leader, I came across multiple surprises in certain cultures where women were not necessarily very, I would say, they were not expected to be in certain senior roles. And even in meetings where I was the most senior woman, it was still not accepted. And in some cultures, as I said, I had to surround myself with other team members that were reporting to me just so we can progress forward with some of the business functions. But overall, despite, as I said, these realities that I really come to embrace and accept as just the reality of where the culture is at that point in time, as just uniqueness that we need to accept and not judge, and ultimately learn from. And everything has just led to a rich array of experiences that have just been absolutely wonderful.
Amazing. Yeah, that's one of the things I noticed when I have traveled around the world is that most people are wonderful. Most people would like nothing more than to invite you to their home to have dinner and to meet their families. And it's a very different picture from what you see in the news, in the media.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. I think we definitely have a shared, I would say, desire to live with joy, to live in harmony, to really feel seen. And this is a common language of every single person on this earth. And I think we just need to open the door, and rather than look at the differences that we have between us, actually begin looking at the things that bring us together and our shared humanity.
hmm It reminds me of when I was in Canada a few years ago, and I went to Niagara Falls, and as you do, and just seeing people there from every culture, from every walk of life, every age, all just standing there looking with awe at this fantastic spectacle of nature, united by that. It just gave me the sense of, wow, we're not so different. In fact, at some point, we were all together somewhere, who knows, maybe in Africa, and someone said goodbye, and they never saw that person again. But now we've got the opportunity to reconnect and share stories. And as you said, I love what you said, accept the differences rather than, resent them or fight them, and find that common ground. It must have been quite a challenge being a leader, breaking the norm in many of these places, actually having to make these decisions when culturally it wasn't easy, but you obviously found a way to connect and motivate people. How did you end up engaging and motivating people from all different walks of life, or was it case by case?
What I've come to realize is that if we begin exploring each individual's unique needs and engaging in a conversation that really understands the things that really matter the most to them, then we can build a relationship that is very, very different, from the sense that we are walking together on a path to achieve maybe something, together or collectively as an organization, as a team. But at the same time, we have different realities. I mean, as we work together, we also need to understand that people have their lives and their life realities that are brought into the work environment. We cannot just expect human beings to show up at work and be robots. So I think what really deeply, profoundly changed me is this understanding that you do not leave your life realities at the door of the enterprise, and as your day starts everything is rosy and fantastic. The reality is that we all have good and bad days, we all have challenges, and we all walk around, as I call it, with these invisible scars.
Hello, it's Brad Hook here, and I'm delighted to share my new book, Start with Values. It is a guide to help you discover what matters most and then bring those core values to life through tools such as micro habits. It helps you make clearer decisions through the decision-making guide. It helps you to activate your values in conversations, particularly those courageous conversations where you need to assert yourself. And it helps you explore some potential shared values, such as nature stewardship, to help us all look after this planet that we call home. Inside, you'll find thought experiments, you'll find worksheets, you'll find action plans, and lots more. If you are interested in reducing your stress and building a life that's meaningful and purposeful, get your copy now. They're available on Amazon, both as a paperback book, such as this, and in Kindle format. So if you have some feedback, please log it in the reviews. I'd love to hear your experience of bringing your values to life. This approach has helped hundreds of thousands of people around the world, and it's now ready for you. Get your copy.
And we need to show more kindness and more compassion and more curiosity as well, rather than being in this world which often is so focused on transactions and deadlines and KPIs and so on, and rather begin understanding individuals at a human level and connecting with them, understanding their needs and what's really important for them in that moment. Because sometimes, as I said, maybe collectively, particularly the more team members you have, the more life realities come into play, and sometimes it can derail things from a big project, a big timeline that you're moving forward with. But as long as we all come together and understand that life happens and we just need to all contribute in the best way that we can, then we can do magical things together. But I think if there's resentment, if there's judgment that comes into play, and that reality of ignoring the human dimension of individuals at work, then you take away the joy that people can actually experience while working.
So getting to know people as people with all of their strengths and their risks and their realities, and then bringing them together. I'm interested in 1 Million Years of Joy. What's it all about, and what inspired the name?
1 million years of joy, I have to say, was truly an inspiration that came from from the heart. It is not something that I was like, oh, let me think about a name and about a company and so on. It was really naturally emerging as I was reflecting after my first brain operation on what is truly the meaning of life. What is my purpose? How can I bring forward more joy to this world? And this name just popped in my head, and I kept suppressing it. Like, no, 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 Andrea, no, no, this is crazy. What are you doing? You manage multi-million dollar businesses. Let's be a bit logical here, and have a greater, sense of direction, business plan. And 1 million years of joy just kept popping up. And I just said, you know what? I'm just going to jump in the water. And it started actually simply with a podcast and a research on joy. So to date, we're actually going to be approaching over 100 interviews to date that we've done with individuals in close to 30 countries. We have also done a global study on joy that is still running today, which basically covers over 48 countries. And we are uncovering different insights about how people experience joy in their lifetimes. What are the obstacles to joy? And that has been really, really fascinating. As I said, we're still uh, in the midst of this project. We have not released the results yet, but that will be coming forward in the near future. So those are the first two dimensions. And in the recent past, what we've also decided was to launch a leadership luminary award to actually bring to the forefront and celebrate leaders that are doing amazing things to bring more joy into our communities and into our organizations in unique ways.
Hey, Brad here. Would you believe that around 70% of the people who watch this podcast have not yet subscribed? It would mean the world to us if you click that subscribe button on whichever platform you use so that we can stay connected with you and you'll receive notifications when we add new episodes. We really appreciate you coming and connecting with us and being part of our community. So all the best.
And the fourth dimension that is in the works right now is actually focused on bringing forward a documentary on joy, which is called The Melody of Life.
I love that. That's so exciting, bringing all of these different threads together. And I love the name, A Million Years of Joy. It's just so captivating and mysterious in a way. It makes you want to find out more. So I think congratulations for sticking with your intuition on that one. There is a lot of wisdom. But when you have those moments of inspiration, sometimes it's worth just aligning with them. Now, I know the research hasn't been published, but was there any insights that really surprised you?
The one of the striking dimensions that we noticed from the beginning, because we wanted to say, okay, well, are there distinct differences from a gender perspective, from a cultural perspective, from a generational perspective? But one of the key things that really stood out from the beginning consistently, and it has never ever shifted, surprisingly, as we were collecting more data from all these different individuals from all over the world, is that dimension that connects purpose to joy. And we ask one question that relates to, have you found your life purpose? And then we correlate this with the level of joy and the level of fulfillment that individuals actually experience in their life. And what we've noticed is that when we segment the data set with the individuals that actually have said, yes, I have found my purpose, I have that clarity of, what I'm here on this earth to do and to achieve, those individuals consistently have shown a higher level of joy and a higher level of life fulfillment. So it's quite interesting, and again, this applies to all age groups.
That is amazing. So getting clear about your purpose increases the joy that you will experience in your life.
Yes, because you,
Fascinating.
you have a greater sense of direction. You're really not just being focused on your own, let's just say, selfish desires and accomplishments. You now have that dual dimension of, well, how do I truly want to contribute to this world? What is the impact that I aspire to have? And it's just beautiful. So as I said, this is one of the key findings that we have come across. And then, of course, when we look at different age groups, and interestingly, what we've come to realize as well is that purpose, of course, evolves with time. And we've come to realize that individuals that are past their 60s, some may have a shifting purpose, and you see a little bit of a dip in terms of their joy level, because I think maybe some individuals that have been very active professionally, that all of a sudden maybe begin retirement, start thinking about, well, what is my purpose now, right? How will I now truly continue bringing value? Because if I'm no longer bringing value to an organization, do I now bring value to a community, or to a charity, or to some philanthropic causes? So it's really interesting to see how purpose actually naturally evolves with our lives, as we have different life priorities and shifts and transformations that emerge. So even when I look back at my own story, and I think of Andreea before the operation, I had a completely different purpose. While after the operation, it's like a new Andreea that is just um, very, very focused on the joy dimension, as we've discussed earlier.
Very similar to how our values evolve over the course of our life. Our purpose evolves too. And I've seen that with executives from consulting firms who we've supported with resilience skills throughout their career. And then they leave. And, you can only play so much golf. That's one of the observations that I made before life starts to feel quite empty.
Exactly.
So clearly defining what it is a critical differentiator. What is your purpose? What value are you adding? And I suppose when you look to various cultures around the world, people's purpose does change. It may start off being all about learning, and then it becomes about productivity, and then it becomes about leadership, and then it becomes about service. And they're quite clear about that in some places, whereas for us, we have to be a bit more deliberate. It doesn't happen by default. I'm interested, do people ever ask, what's the difference between happiness and joy?
Yes, and it's really interesting because when we started the research, we were actually asking people, do you see a difference between happiness and joy? And what we've come to realize is that the large majority of individuals were saying, no, there is no difference. And we are researching joy, but let's not forget, because we have data from so many countries, sometimes there's the subtlety in the language, right? And even I speak four languages, and even as I'm speaking with different people, for example, in French or in Romanian or in Spanish, even then we have these subtle distinct differences between, is it this word or that word, and so on. So let's just say that it became very, very complex. And clearly, at least in my view, and I've been doing so much research on this, and I, even the interviews that I've been doing on the podcast, I asked people, do you see a difference between joy and happiness? And we even asked, what is your formula for joy? And it's so interesting because there is not one single person that has the same definition for the formula for joy, or has the same definition of happiness or joy. So everyone is very, very unique in terms of how they look at their lives, how they experience happiness, how they experience joy. From my perspective, I look at happiness as something that we may pursue and think it may arise as a result of us achieving something or obtaining something. And I believe that joy is something that we can tap into, that is naturally available to us, even in the craziest moments of our lives. And that actually was a realization that I made prior to going into my 9-hour brain surgery. Because the days before the operation, I kept thinking, I do not want to be remembered as a victim. If for whatever reason this operation doesn't go well, I don't want my kids, my husband, and those that I love that I'm seeing now and enjoying these last moments with to remember me as a victim. And despite the uncertainty that came with the upcoming operation, I chose to experience joy. I chose to live in the moment. I chose to be present and to appreciate everything that was emerging in my life, although there was this big unknown as to what would happen after. Because as you can imagine, as soon as you touch the brain, I mean, the smallest error could actually create debilitating problems, paralysis, death. I mean, it's just crazy. So this actually led to a model that I created that I talked about in my TED talk, which is called the Trilogy of Joy. So even the whole talk was about how do you find joy in adversity. So this is actually, as I said, how I look at joy today. And it's the three dimensions of the Trilogy of Joy, if you wish that I share them with your audience,
Please.
are centered around love, around gratitude, and around confidence. And each one of these three dimensions encompasses three other dimensions, and it all starts with yourself. Then it's followed by others and life. So if you talk about love, how can you find more self love? How can you also bring more love to others? And how can you love more your life? When it comes to gratitude, how can you have more gratitude towards yourself? How can you have more gratitude towards others and more gratitude towards life? And then for courage or confidence, it's how can you have more self-confidence in yourself that you're walking on the right path, you're making the right decisions with all the information that you have. Particularly in my case was like, am I choosing the right neurosurgeon here to operate on my mind? Because I only have one choice to get this right. um, and then it was really about expanding that, as I said, to others and to life, and even having the confidence that despite the adversity and the challenges and all the emotions I was feeling, that I would have the confidence that life will somehow potentially bloom into something that is so extraordinary down the road, that despite this adversity that I'm facing right now, there's something to look forward to, and that will just be incredible.
Excellent. And we'll link to that TED Talk in the show notes, so everyone do check that out. What can we learn from neuroscience about living a more joyful life?
Well, neuroscience actually is indicating that there's a lot of complexity when it comes to the brain. And there's decades of progress that scientists have made in understanding the brain. And one of the core realities that we need to, first of all, understand is that our brains are not made to make us happy. Our brains are there to ensure our survival. And our brains are naturally going to be looking out for the negative things or things that could compromise our survival. And once we actually understand that we are naturally going to be more inclined to looking at the negative things or the things that could be threatening our existence, we need to take a conscious effort to actually orient our thoughts and our energy on finding beauty, basically seeing abundance, feeling grateful, in order to elevate the positive emotions that we can feel. And all this starts with a greater self awareness of ourselves and the emotions that we are experiencing in every single moment.
That's a great way to put it in perspective. Like, the brain is always on high alert for things that may go wrong, and that's a survival strategy that has worked for most creatures. If you're not aware of what could go wrong, it's just that we live in a world with far more information density than ever before. And much of that triggers these primal responses. And you could spend your entire life living in future-based thinking, anxiety, or in rumination, or just in the state of perpetual stress. I love that you say joy is always there. It's not something that you cultivate. It's tapping into this field that's actually always available to you. That's a really nice differentiator. I like how you've discovered that, because no matter what's going on, you can always tap into that substrate or that field of joy to uplift your experience.
Absolutely. And sometimes, we just need to recognize that life is filled with highs and lows. It's not made about this beautiful journey that where everything is going right and we're always happy. No, it's actually in these highs and lows that we can actually then even better, I would say, appreciate the beauty when it arises, the
Mm.
successes when they arise, and we just need to understand that it's part of life and the mystery that comes with this existence that we all have.
Mm. Absolutely. It's almost like you can find those moments of joy in the most challenging moments if you realize that you're going to grow as a result of this challenge. You just tap in and go, one day I'm going to be proud of myself. I do this exercise quite a lot where I ask, well, what would the future version of me say to me right now? And what would I say right now to a past version of myself? And it's so life affirming because it's often, hey, don't stress, don't sweat the small stuff, just keep going. It's going to be worth it. Even if you fail, it's going to be fine. Enjoy the failure because you're going to learn something from it. Now, this is not that Pollyanna optimism. And I'm sure people have said to you, should we just be joyful all the time? But what you're saying is far more aligned with resilience. So perhaps you could speak to us a little bit more about how resilience and joy fit together.
The experience that I've had, and as I've been exploring also resilience, is that we need to understand that even our brains, I mean, there's a brain budget. In other words, our brains, because they're always looking at keeping us alive and it's all about survival, right? Everything we do is tapping into a budget. If you know the brain budget, basically, that looks into the energy that you need to basically do a specific thing, whether you're running, whether you're doing a speech, whether you're doing some mental work. And it's really, really interesting because I remember as I was recovering from my operation, I had a physiotherapist that was helping me get back on my feet because I couldn't even walk actually after the operation. And the physiotherapist was telling me, Andreea, you need to consider and understand that if you're doing something that is very mentally taxing, you need to consider it as taxing as something that is very physically taxing as well. So I came to understand the reality that we have limited energy in a day and we need to tap into it in an optimal way. But we also need to build our resilience through healthy lifestyle choices. And one of the most important one is sleep. Unless we actually get 7 to 8 hours of sleep every single night, we're actually going to be feeling more anxious the next day because we're going to be more on edge. We're not going to be able to basically find joy as easily because everything is just going to be more of a struggle. So I would say protect your sleep, make sure that you exercise. And it doesn't necessarily mean, getting ready for a marathon. It's really about tapping into being in nature, being outside, going for a walk, going for a run, a bicycle ride, whatever is accessible to you, I think is super, super important to build your resilience. And then making healthy choices in terms of everything that you drink and you eat. For me, I think those are also the core components that really build our resilience. And to give you an example, particularly after all the research I've been doing after my first operation, I started diving deeper and experimenting with different things. And there's brain food that we know, will basically create more energy physically and mentally. And there's other food choices that we can make that actually will create brain fog, where we will not be able to think as clearly, perform as as best as we can, think as creatively as we can. So we really need to understand that if we begin looking at our body and what we feed it, will have a massive impact on our brain power and our overall energy. And for me, all these dimensions that I've spoken about connect into building our resilience so we can basically have top energy to do amazing things in this life and enjoy it to the fullest. Because at the end of the day, once we have that energy, mental and physical, we can actually also more easily tap into experiencing joy, seeing the awe around us, searching for beauty. Do you see what I mean? It also puts us in a more positive, emotional state that allows us to just cherish and enjoy life in a completely new way.
So aligned with the work that I do. People are sometimes surprised when they hear, "You're going to talk to me about sleep? I thought we were here for a resilience workshop," and they think it's going to be either they think it's going to be a Navy SEALs style boot camp, or they think it's just going to be some cognitive tools, how to reframe a situation. But it's not at all. If you have a terrible night's sleep, 4 hours of sleep, and we've all had that from time to time, the next day is a real challenge. So you try and survive with coffee or stimulants or whatever it might be, just to get through urgency maybe. And you're almost certainly not going to experience joy because you are just chronically fatigued. Yeah, I'm with you. Just prioritizing those practices. And I often think about building that web of habits that will support you both in good times and in challenging times, but they're always there. And they increase the likelihood of being a safety net and also that springboard to experience more joy each day. So I love that you've connected the well-being aspect to resilience, because a lot of people, they see it purely as coping skills, which I don't think is accurate. There's a lot more to it than that. Yeah.
Indeed.
What are some small practices that help you stay connected to joy and purpose?
I tap into the Trilogy of Joy that I mentioned earlier. And beyond that, it's really about surrounding yourself with people that you love, that really enrich your life, sometimes challenge you to ensure that you're constantly growing and learning rather than stagnating. And I can tell you that the relationships that I have in my life, and I would say that a lot of us have learned that, particularly after COVID. It's really about building those meaningful and deep connections rather than building these superficial connections that you're not really talking about what matters and what's in our heart. So for me, building the right relationships is absolutely key to bringing more joy and experiencing more joy in our lives. And actually, there's extensive research on this as well. As you know, the Harvard Grant study that looked at graduates for over 75 years really concluded the importance of having those important relationships. And in fact, it showed that individuals that had strong relationships in their 50s were the ones actually that lived often past their 80s and were the ones that actually had optimal health at that age, which is quite phenomenal when you truly think about it. So relationships are essential for our brain health and our emotional health as well.
Can you help someone who is in a state of distress, or maybe they're suffering? Many of us want to support them in experiencing more joy. Is it a case of just leaving breadcrumbs or leaving tips or tools? Can you help someone become more joyful, or is this an individual journey?
I think you can guide certain individuals if they are open to being guided. And one thing that I'd like to bring out that really touches on the five senses. When we feel stuck, when we're in a state of high anxiety, depression, and so on, what research is showing actually is that often it's almost as if we're suppressing the emotional side because we no longer want to feel the pain. And in doing that, we begin no longer paying attention to the five senses that can actually just completely shift how we live. And if you're noticing someone close to you that is maybe experiencing more negativity than usual, I encourage you to maybe bring them or suggest, hey, let's go for a walk. Let's go in a park. Let's immerse ourselves in the natural beauty. You know, let's just look at the birds and the flowers. Let's smell the flowers. Let's hear the birds sing. Let's basically also, you know, smell, taste, everything that you can actually do that elevates your sensory experience can actually create a complete shift in taking people out of their monologue that is purely negative and self-defeating, often very judgmental, towards this introspective experience where by tapping into their senses they can actually begin seeing the light at the end of the tunnel and re-experiencing all those emotions has been proven to actually help certain individuals to be able to more easily ease out of whatever, you know, darkness they may be in.
I see it with surfing, which is exactly as you say, it's a full body experience. If I'm feeling low, just getting out of my head, getting into the body and getting into nature, that without doubt lifts the spirit and you start to experience those moments of joy. And I've seen it with surf therapy programs where you get people who are really suffering and you just say, okay, for the next hour, forget about all of your problems. Most of them are in your mind, and let's get into the body and into the ocean. And without fail, it's, you know, people start smiling again. And often, do you think joy can be a habit that you can cultivate?
I think there are paths to joy that we can all cultivate. And one simple path is actually to choose to search for beauty. And that really taps into this idea of not just looking at the world as if, you know, it's filled with scarcity, but rather with abundance. And actually, there's research that has shown that, you know, they've taken two groups of individuals for 1 week, and one group was tasked at looking for everything that was horrible in this world, you know, people crying, garbage on the street, graffitis, and so on. And then the other group was tasked to actually search for beauty for a week, look into all the abundance that we have around us that often we overlook. So, who do you think actually was the happiest after 1 week? It was definitely the group that basically was searching intentionally for people that were smiling, seeing the flowers, appreciating the blue sky and the sunshine, feeling, you know, the warmth of the sun on their face. So we have a choice in every single moment, whether it's in our personal lives and our professional lives, to really consciously make an effort to search for beauty. And I think, you know, there's a ton of other suggestions I can give, but I think this is the easiest one that we can all tap into. And one suggestion I have maybe for your listeners is maybe aim, since, you know, we're all carrying our phones around us, aim to maybe take one picture a day of something that you find beautiful. And, you know, within a week, you already have 7 pictures. Maybe you'll have even more. Who knows? But if you could just take one picture that really brought you joy and elevated your spirit and that you found beautiful, that's already a good start, no matter where you may be.
I love that. If you saw my phone, the photos section is just full of sunsets from the top of the local mountain that I run up. And even though it's never the same, it looks similar, but it's never the same. And I just can't help myself. I'm like, I've got this little high definition camera in my pocket. Why not use it to capture this moment and maybe share it with someone that you care about, because you're then sharing that joy around. I love that. Do you think, and this is a little bit of an esoteric question, but do you think that we might find with, as we discover, and I say this because I've been listening and reading to Joe Dispenza, who I found really useful earlier on in my life, breaking the habit of being yourself and so forth. And a lot of people think he's a bit woo-woo, but he talks a lot about victim versus creator, and actually tapping into a kind of quantum field that exists around all of us. And logically, there is a field of potential. Every decision is a potential that could go one way or another way. Do you think that there might be a quantum field of joy or something that we can actually tap into to I don't know, create these shared experiences for ourselves and others?
It's very interesting that you talk about Joe Dispenza's work, because indeed I've read literally all his books. I even attended one of his seminars, and I do truly believe in the work that he does, particularly because there's so much science behind it. Like
Yeah.
it's no longer based on, oh, I think, and this is what I believe. I mean, literally, they have integrated the scientific dimension through the years that has really been very, very fascinating. Another scientific based research was showing the magnetic field of the heart. And this basically taps into positive emotions, and how, depending on how we feel emotionally, like it can basically expand, and people around us can actually feel it. And again, this is scientifically proven, and you can just feel it as you're walking in a room and you're in proximity of someone that has this positive vibe and energy. Like it almost like lifts your spirits up, right? And so, do you call it quantum field? Do you call it positive energy? There is definitely something that we need to appreciate and sense. And we're back again to the five senses that I was talking about
Mm.
earlier, that can have a profound impact on us. And as much as we can tap into the positive energy of someone else that we may surround ourselves with, the negative can also emerge. So if we're in an environment, whether it's in our personal lives or within an organization or a team, where there's a lot of animosities, a lot of anxieties, a lot of irritability, the reality is that it's going to bring us down, no matter how excited we walk into that room or that team meeting. So it's very, very important to understand that emotions are contagious, and we need to realize that and choose wisely who we surround ourselves with.
So, Andrea, any final thoughts for those who have stuck with us all the way to the end?
Final thoughts is really to understand that we can all choose how we live our lives, and we can all have a moment of awe, a moment of gratitude, and a moment of beauty that we can experience and see by simply choosing to focus our attention on the beauty of life rather than all the challenges that may arise along our journey. So I encourage everyone to explore the beauty of life every single moment, because none of us know how many days, weeks, or years we have in front of us.
Andrea, thank you so much. And everyone, please do check out the links in the show notes and connect with Andrea's work. We'll see you in the next episode.